The Secrets of Star Wars is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
I am Emily Swallow, also known as the Armorer on The Mandalorian. And I'm just giving a little shout out to the Secrets of Star Wars podcast because this is the way.
You're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, episode 150.
Hello there.
It's a power that Jedi have that lets them control people and make things float.
Impressive. Every word in that sentence was wrong.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
It's against my programming to impersonate a deity.
That's not how the Force works.
Force is with me, and I am with the Force, and I fear nothing.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
Hi, I'm Robert King, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Wars, where we talk about everything connected to that galaxy far, far away. From movies to books to TV shows and more, we're looking at the deeper themes and meanings found in Star Wars. Today, we're talking about The Bad Batch, Episode 10 of Season 2. Joining me today on the panel are Joshua Beeghley and Kathryn Laffrey. Welcome back, Josh.
I'm happy to be here.
And good to talk to you again as well, Kathryn.
Hello, good to be here.
Right on. So this episode is titled Retrieval, and it picks up pretty much exactly where the last one left off. Our heroes are trapped on this red rock planet full of Ipsium mines. Their ship has been stolen, their resources are almost gone, and Sid has refused to give them any kind of help. They're trying to fix a speeder to get to an actual settlement when Omega has the idea to track not their ship, but Gonki, their power droid. This leads them to a massive Ipsium mine where their ship has been stolen to. A local boss named Mako has pressed a bunch of children into laboring for him in the mines. And the kid who stole their ship is among them, a boy named Benny. Benny defends Mako, who gives them work and keeps the mine in business, despite degraded Ipsium. But the Batch force Benny to take them to their ship, the Marauder, and to help them lower the shield so they can escape. While they are doing this in the control center, Omega makes a discovery. That, surprise, the Ipsium isn't degraded after all, and Mako has just been keeping all the profit for himself. It's a little too late because the Batch get caught, and Mako leads his droids and miners to capture them and holds Omega hostage to get all the others to stand down. But Benny thinks about the way that the Batch treats each other and the way Mako has been treating him and the other miners, and decides to reveal Mako's betrayal to everyone else. They turn on Mako, and they take the mine together and let the Batch head out on their merry way. It's an exciting episode. There's a lot going on in it. But kind of the first thing that struck me about it was how different in tone it was from the previous episode, and how much it kind of shattered my expectations. I was kind of expecting like a 2-part episode that would really fit together tonally and plot-wise and such, and it didn't strike me that way. How about you guys? How did it play with your expectations?
I don't know what I was expecting going into it, but for being a more action-related episode, it didn't really just hit me very well. I didn't really see the action as interesting, which is really weird because it was just usually whenever I see action, I'm like, yeah, fighting, explosions. But I don't know, there was just some key part of it missing for me. I don't know if it was just a main centralized piece, and that sort of may come from the disconnect from the episode before. It felt like a standalone episode compared to last time, where it's just yeah, they're on another adventure and now they have to get their stuff back. And then it didn't really advance anything in my mind either.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of action, there wasn't a lot of actual fighting. It felt maybe more like a heist where there was a lot of planning and scheming and sneaking around, but not a lot of, like you say, explosions or and definitely not a lot of blaster fire.
Yes.
Well, not an Ipsium mine.
No. That would be a mistake.
To shock you both, I felt like this is exactly what I was expecting and that it followed along perfectly with the episode before.
Really?
Yes, it felt like just a good continuation. The rhythm of the music led right into it. The views that we were seeing of these towns, half empty and derelict, and, that working mine community kind of scene that we've seen in a couple of different Star Wars shows and episodes, but just the continuation of them trying to rebuild their family unit without having Echo, watching Omega now mimicking Tech for the first portion of this in a way that she had never mimicked him before. And I think that was based on the trust that she received from him in working with the tools. And that you trust me and I know you can do this. So there was this whole new thing where she was the one using Tech's analytic device more than Tech was this time.
That's true.
She was carrying it around. So there was a whole different dynamic there between her and Tech. And you still have Wrecker being the immature one. I'm hungry. Is this done yet? This is a piece of junk. He's like the classic little kid. The only thing I forgot to do was check to see their seating order when they finally got that land speeder together. That was interesting to see what order they were sitting in. The only thing I picked up on was that Hunter was sitting at the back. So he had the rear guard. He had they're protecting their six, so to speak. And everybody else just kind of piled on after that. But no, I really felt like this had I would have rather watch it as all one episode than divided in half like it was. And for me, I mean, having Benny be just Benny, a new character, I was totally fine with because he's foreshadowing what we all wanted. He's the right age, the right size, the right coloring to have been Boba Fett, but he's not. So it's like one of those like teasers. It's like, oh, it could have been Boba Fett. And not only that, but he had the same sort of attitude. He's working for a crime boss, essentially, and stealing stuff, which is exactly what we saw Boba Fett doing. So you kind of get to see a little teaser of that play between Omega and Boba Fett that we could hopefully see sometime in the future.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we talked a lot about on the last episode was, who is this thief going to be? And actually, I don't think any of us on that episode came up with Boba Fett as a possibility.
We didn't.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I thought of the build. The fact that we saw his hands, it was like, yeah, this definitely looked like little humanoid hands. And
I don't see
like
Boba Fett as someone staying low to a single planet, though. He was very much at a larger level of bounty hunting, working with people like Cad Bane, Ventress, and sort of like the entire Republic and Separatist legions. I don't think he'd be worried about some dying Ipsium mine that was owned by the Techno Union. He'd be following whatever's in the greatest interest.
Yeah, but there's a lot you can do with that stuff. And we didn't know some dying mine. Well, it's not really a dying mine. And from what we saw, there's a lot of opportunities available there. Not only that, but we saw, Boba Fett's other cohorts earlier on in season 1. And Boba Fett wasn't anywhere with them. He's off on his own. So you never know when he's in and out of good times. And he's still only 13 years old.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm in the previous episode, I hadn't expected that the thief was necessarily, protecting the Ipsium. I was thinking, oh, maybe this is someone who's been tracking the Bad Batch. And that would fit in very well with Boba Fett. But I think it's my turn to shock everybody that Boba Fett is just not an interesting character to me, and never really has been. Was kind of semi-interesting in Empire Strikes Back, and like, I don't know, apart from looking cool, I never wanted to know anything more about Boba Fett. And when he showed up in The Mandalorian and then got his own show, I was like, this is just, is like, I thought he was the worst part of it.
Wow.
So I expect many people disagree with me on that, but we're all entitled to our bad taste, me included.
Nice.
Yeah, that is interesting, because to me, it felt like the music actually changed significantly. Like, the music at the beginning of the episode had a little bit of that Western guitar in there, but it seemed to, I didn't notice it at all in the rest of the episode. And
only when they showed outside scenes did that Western sound come back. As soon as they went inside, it changed to the different tones. That way you kind of feel like you're down underground.
Yeah, and I guess I took that as a cue of, oh, the whole episode just has a different tone to it.
And come on, the bad guy looks like an armadillo gone wrong. I mean, you look at Mako's face, I was like, this is like evil cyborg armadillo. So it still kept the Western feel for me. Okay.
Well, that is cool. And that probably made it a much more satisfying episode for you than for you, Josh. I mean, you sounded like it just wasn't doing anything for you at all.
I just felt like there was some piece missing to it that didn't just sit with me. It felt like a little bit like some of the Clone Wars episodes where it's just kind of like there's a little bit of action, but there's no real progression of the plot, sort of like the early seasons of the Clone Wars. Mm-hmm. And I feel that's something that this entire season's been lacking, is like a centralized plot to see throughout it. Like, they've sort of hinted at a couple of different things, like right now with Sid starting a betrayal, or like the clones phasing out, but they haven't stuck with anything, which makes each episode kind of feel out of place, because there's a lot of different things going on right now that they can't focus in on, but then they should like focus on something else, like the character development or something like that. And it just seems like that's missing as well. Like, the only sort of character development I got out of this episode was Tech calling the Gonk droid Gonky or something along those lines. It's just kind of like giving a droid a little bit more personality to sort of show that like he has some sort of sentimental feeling towards things.
I thought Tech's speech at the very end in that last scene was a sign of his growth as well. Omega is complaining that it's like, the Empire isn't the only threat out there. There are so many people like Mako who are just making life difficult in the galaxy. And Tech actually says something that is effectively comforting. Like, it actually works. And he says there are also many like us, and that's something.
That was probably the strongest A-Team moment that Bad Batch has had since it started. And that was the whole like sort of vision behind this, was A-Team in Star Wars.
Yeah.
Josh, you know what the A-Team is?
Yes,
I do. The original
It's,
A-Team. Okay, I'm just making sure.
Very much, but even then, it's something that's.
I love it when a podcast comes together.
I got all kinds of old school references throughout this one that I saw. Although it'll be the old school for Josh, maybe. For me, they were like a mom remembering watching cartoons with their kid.
So what other references were jumping out at you, Kathryn?
Right away, as soon as I saw the other boys in the mine, there was one scene when Mako was bringing out the bowl of soup for the winner, and they pan across the boys, and you see two of them wearing their helmets with a single headlight, both wearing goggles, and one had a mask on. That would be the Digger twins from the cartoon Recess.
Okay.
Do you guys know who they are?
That is not familiar to me.
Oh, and right away I called my daughter. I was like, "Did you watch it yet? The Digger twins are in it." And she just started laughing because Recess was her all-time favorite cartoon growing up. This was like, we always laugh about the heyday of Disney cartoons was when they were younger, like early 2000s. You had some great shows, and Recess was one of them. And they had the Digger twins. And I'll make sure I'll post pictures on our Discord community of the Digger twins and the comparison shot. And then there was one other character in there that's a Dave Filoni character. And right next to the Digger twins was Sokka from Avatar.
Oh.
He had the same hairdo, dressed just like him. I was like, oh my gosh, that's Sokka.
I'm going to have to go back and look at that. I'm a huge Last Airbender fan. Yeah.
So it was
wild.
Kind of fun to see little connections like that in there. And then, of course, the A-Team connection. I couldn't miss that.
I mean,
that's awesome.
Yeah, kind of what the Bad Batch is all about. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was just like, it was really like they were saying and doing things exactly like the A-Team did. So it was pretty cool.
I mean, I don't remember B.A. Baracus ever quite complaining so much about, like, I'm tired, I'm hungry.
Oh, I'm sure he did.
Just give me some milk.
Oh
man. But I see, I'm listening to the both of you and I'm thinking, I wonder if like the things that are making it work for you, Kathryn, are like the same things that are kind of making it not work for you, Josh. Like the episode seems to be focusing on a lot of familiar tropes and a lot of like the plot was very predictable from beginning to end. Like there was not a single beat that surprised me. Mm-hmm. You know, the only really surprising things were a couple of the lines of dialogue that, like, as you say, maybe brought out more of the character or a slightly different side of the character than I expected. But yeah, so on the one hand, that can feel very, you know, comforting and like, yes, this is what I expected and wanted, and that's a good thing. But if you're not looking for that kind of, I don't know, comfort, it might feel like this episode isn't really doing anything. There's nothing new in it. It's not moving anywhere. It's just kind of retreading old ground. Am I kind of, I don't know. This is my theory about how we can have like such radically different takes on this episode.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if one food is a comfort food for one person, it might be like the worst thing ever you could mention to them. I mean, you got some people that are like, oh, oatmeal's the best comfort food. And others are like, I'm going to like lose it all over the place if I put a bowl of oatmeal in front of me. So you just never know. This was like a comfort food show today or this time around. It was just, it was there. It was cute. It was, you know, like watching Indiana Jones Temple of Doom meets Oliver Twist meets the A-Team. And then you throw in like little character cameos from, you know, some favorite cartoons. So it was just kind of just a big pile of comfort food. I don't know. Maybe Josh, you like spicier foods, probably.
I do.
See, there you go.
Yeah, it definitely felt really predictable too, which I don't like. Because it's like, okay, they lost their ship. They're going to get it back. All right, he's going to betray them, called that. And then he's going to die in the end, and they're all going to be happy. It just seemed too predictable and lacking of just any sort of change. It, like, yeah, like people like their comfort food, but it's also just like, that's not something I want to see often. Like every now and then it's like, okay, yeah, I'll go back and watch an episode for the comfort, but like if I'm seeing something new, I don't want to see old things revisited in it.
Yeah,
That's just me.
That's all right. No, it was kind of funny because you watch Mako like scarfing down the food in the most disgusting, hideous way possible, and then the show ends with, there it is, the ultimate Star Wars comfort fruit. You got the nice Maileron fruit in Benny's hand, so it's like, yeah, it's all about feel good endings and. The kids
and
out
even
all right.
Mako dies in kind of the ultimate Star Wars way of falling into flaming lava or something. Yeah.
Okay, that fall's got to end, right? You know, you hit the lava, you're done.
Yeah, but we can cut away from it because, you know, this is a kids show.
I did think Mako's character, like his physical build, was very interesting though, because being on a former Techno-Union planet, he had his cybernetic arm, but then whenever you were looking back at like episode 2 of Attack of the Clones, it was like a full Metal Gear kind of thing where he was fully cybernetic and this guy was sort of starting. And I just thought that was really interesting to see sort of him going on the way to being fully cybernetic, it looked like, but also still being like a man and full of gluttony and those aspects of life.
Yeah, I very much got the impression that he was like a low-level guy who, when everything changed and the Empire took over and the Techno-Union collapsed, he just saw an opportunity and grabbed it. And but he never had like significantly higher status or ambitions himself.
Yeah, they never really said, but he almost seemed like he was local to the planet and the Techno-Union was there. So his cybernetics were, you know, a gift from them. I'm sure he was at one point in time working the mines himself, but like you said, took over. We never did really hear what happened to the parents of these children.
It's Children of the Corn.
Yeah, I know. Like, what's going on? Where's their parents?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, how did he get all of this child labor and although he seemed perfectly willing to put the Bad Batch in along with them as part of the labor force when he was holding Omega hostage and threatening them.
I loved how Wrecker got to prove we never miss.
Yes.
But also the one in their group who never misses a shot was Crosshair, and he hasn't been seen in a while.
Right.
Yeah. I think at this point I'm kind of leaning towards Josh's appraisal. Partly because I think I had some very definite expectations set up from the previous episode, and I just was kind of thrown for a loop, but also because, yeah, I think I am more invested in like the big picture story arc than I am in the fun adventure of the week kind of episode, and we're not getting a lot of that this season. I think they're trying to do character development in each episode. They're kind of, focusing on different characters, especially Tech. Tech has gotten several episodes this season and his character's really being filled out. But we've only seen Crosshair in that one standalone episode. And I really want to see kind of the connection between, where does Crosshair fit in the Bad Batch, and is there going to be reconciliation or resolution of any kind? And how are the Batch going to connect with sort of the rest of what's going on in this early stage of the Empire?
Yeah, there was one visual in there that made me really miss Crosshair, and it was at the bottom of that chimney vent. The floor of it looked like Crosshair's mark over his eye.
Oh yeah.
I didn't catch it till the second time I watched it. Yeah, and I was like, oh, where's Crosshair? It's like, you miss seeing him. It's like, we got to know what's going on. Yeah. If they had him, he would have picked off the droid from the top of the chimney and no problem. So,
one of the things that I really was interested in, and this is, I was telling you a little bit about this before we started recording, but I was just really struck by especially Benny's rhetoric about, well, Mako gives us work. He keeps us working. He's keeping us in business. And that sense of sort of him and all the others kind of being gaslit by Mako about their status as employees and how it's their enforced labor is kind of seen by them as as their reward. And it really called to mind for me an aspect of Catholic social teaching that is near and dear to my heart, and that is the teaching on the dignity of the worker. And especially as it was brought out by Pope St. John Paul II. And I don't know if you guys are Catholic social teaching geeks like I am, but that whole theme of sort of Omega trying to offer an alternative and Benny just continually turning it down. It's like, but I've got job security here. As if his entire identity was wrapped up in his work. When like the key thrust of Catholic teaching is, the person is more important than the thing. And that labor work is dignified because it is done by people. People are not, work gains its value from the people who do it, not people gaining value from whatever they can produce or their usefulness or productivity. And it seemed like this episode was kind of reaching toward that direction, but it didn't really have like an anchor to hold on to. So I'm going to get off my soapbox about that, but I'm just curious if you had thoughts about like just the whole moral setup that this episode dealt with.
Yeah, it made me think about not so much the worker, but children in an abusive situation.
Yeah, sure.
Because some of them don't know anything outside of the situation they're in, and they see the little bit of, if you could call it gratitude, from Mako letting you have the last sip of his water bottle as caring for them and not knowing anything else. Like Benny said, I don't know anything else. This is home. So it is hard to get children out of that situation and see that they deserve to be treated better. And so that's why I think they did such a good job capturing Benny's confusion at Mako's death.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to rescue him because this is the person that's always provided for him. So there's that kind of attachment to this like father figure-ish. And at the same time, he's trying to pull Benny down to kill him. And, even after that, as he's falling to his death, you could see the confusion and chaos going through Benny's face of, what do I do now? Who's going to take care of me? So that's what I saw with that. It does tie in with the worker and taking care of them. My only other thing was Drake seemed to be being fed the most. I started going, he's getting to be about the size of Mako. I'm guessing that's when, those kids disappear down into the mine instead of being part of the in crowd with Mako. Because, he's getting big enough that he could take over if he wanted to.
It was definitely interesting. And especially like the inner circle of like the higher up workers, of them eventually falling back down so that way Mako could stay in power.
Yeah, I noticed that the inner circle does more stealing. Yeah.
Oh, I was just noting that you had mentioned Oliver Twist earlier, and that, you know, the whole Dickensian kind of atmosphere of treating those kids so badly and making them feel grateful for being treated badly.
That's why it was neat to see in all of that. There's Omega with her last ration bar and having such faith in knowing that her team is going to get out of this, that she hands it to him, even though he had stole their ship, had, you know, given them a run around and bring them to a ship that's in pieces, that she's still willing to forgive him, give him her last meal.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, then you could see the guilt conflict start happening in him going, wait, you're just giving me food? I didn't do anything. And if anything, you should be taking food away from me. I took your ship. It was kind of like, you could almost see that in the back of his head.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just appreciated that, you know, seeing her as the flip side. She's always, you know, that's why it's funny for me to, in the hope of seeing Boba Fett with Omega, is just so that I could see the Alpha and the Omega together, to see that contrast. And Benny, to me, played out that little bit of contrast. You know, the thief with the kid who's trying to do everything right. They're kind of that opposite of each other, and yet from the same beginning.
I really did love the kind of chemistry between Omega and Benny. And again, you know, an earlier episode, and now I'm blanking on his name, the Jedi Wookiee, Gungi, thank you. The dynamic between Omega and Gungi as well, that Omega's ability to just connect with whoever it is that needs help in the episode, and like the way she does kind of stand as the moral center of the show in so many ways.
And I also sometimes see Omega as almost too caring and too perfect in a world that's not kind at all.
Mm-hmm.
Where she's taking advantage of, she's going to lose out on things. And I see it almost as too kind to a fault.
Mm-hmm.
And that's sort of where the rest of her squad comes in and has to sort of help her out of things. Because yes, her compassion towards what's his name, Draco or something like that, was kind and sincere and all and everything, but he is at the end of the day still going to do what he needed to succeed and to survive. He is in a different state than Omega, and from that he only thinks about like his next meal basically. And as soon as Drake or
is it Benny you're thinking?
Yeah,
of?
Benny. Sorry,
Yep.
I don't know why my mind was on Draco. As soon as his father figure shows up, he's going to just switch back to him, because that's all that matters, is where his next meal is. Their state of survival trumps kindness and compassion.
But at the same time, Benny held on to the information he got from Omega. And he was willing to, there was that little, her kindness created the crack in his world to open him up to the truth. I think he even says, "Thank you for showing me the truth."
Something like that, yeah. But what truth did she show him? I mean, she showed him that
Mako was abusing them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily change what Josh was saying. You know, he may still be looking for, well, where's my next meal? And I've got a better chance as a better meal if I kick Mako out, because he's
now Mako's gone. where are they going to get their next meal? There's a lot of people in that mine that probably have been in there the past 3 or 4 years or however long it's been in there. And this is like all they've known. What are they going to do? Where are they going to go? They don't know anything besides the mine and trying to fight to get it.
Yeah, well, at least now they have Mako's storehouse of food that they can share with each other. They did talk about that, ended it with it's mealtime.
Yeah. And they're going to share the profits equally.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that means. Yeah, I mean, I kind of get this kind of like an A-Team episode. It doesn't really want us to think too deeply about like all the practical implications of what's going on here. It was setting up this really clear moral good, moral evil, or at least moral evil that we wanted to fight against. And Omega is kind of holding out something that's opposed to that. But you're right, Josh, she gets the batch in trouble.
Yeah.
A lot. And and they half the episodes are about getting out of some trouble that Omega got them into,
or Omega wants them to save someone who's in trouble.
yeah And here it just kind of nicely coincides that the people that Omega wants them to help are the same people who have their ship and the way off the planet. So, that's helpful. It's not it's not a choice of, well, should we do this mission or should we, run away and do something else? It's, well, we've got to do this mission, and it's good that we can help those who need help.
They had a good visual to show the good that was done instantly. As they panned away from that mining community, there were more lights on in and around the town, around the mining shaft. And all of a sudden it had, so there was like that spark of light.
Yeah.
So
life returning to this dead planet.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious to see what's going to happen next. The one thing I do miss is Hunter being Hunter. We don't see much of him using his skills like we did early on in the first season. Where he can like tell something's approaching and, all his tracking skills. It seems like all that's kind of background noise right now.
It seems like he's more so been trying to be a leader and keep the group intact, because the recent thing has obviously been losing Echo and feeling like it's not a family anymore because I lost someone in it, and sort of just trying to keep everyone happy together is his goal right now. I don't think his skills matter, because also we haven't seen Wrecker, like throwing a ship or something like that. So
I've seen him use his own body to cover a container of explosives, though. My goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a different side of Hunter rather than his heightened senses. He's using his leadership skills to be able to keep everyone together and make sure everyone's okay.
Seems to mellow out.
This is one of the things that I think really has continued strongly from the previous episode, but it's also kind of been a theme of the whole second season, is the Bad Batch feels like they're in survival mode. Season 1, they were in survival mode because they were running and escaping and trying to figure out where they could land. But season 2, it feels like they're in a different kind of survival mode. Like they're trying to figure out where they can live. They're not entirely happy with Sid, but she's providing them a home, or a home base at least.
For now.
Yeah. And we can see, I mean, there are kind of these parallels we might look at between like how Sid is treating the batch and how Mako is treating the workers. And, Sid's not as extreme, but she's maybe more extreme in her manipulation. If she's not more extreme in like the violence of her tactics.
Mm-hmm. Well, it doesn't even have to be violence. It's neglecting, I guess, for Sid, seeing them as still an expendable part of her operations. It's convenient for her to have them do everything, but it doesn't have to mean that she has to care for them if they're going to do it all. And I think
she's not the one who lost their ship.
Yeah, the neglection's a different form of like abuse rather than being the powerhouse like Mako is.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's very much I'm in charge here. What I say goes. Sid is more so, you can do this, or I can find someone else to do it. And it makes them have to feel like they need to do it to still keep their worth with Sid.
Yeah, she's a good manipulator.
Yeah, manipulation is definitely one of the big themes, I guess, of this episode. Like the various levels of how did Tech put it? Said something about using. It seems that Mako uses his power and what was it? Power and resources to his power and means as leverage over his workers. It is a similar tactic to that used by the Empire, although on a smaller scale. and it's like, this power and means as leverage over those who do not have power and means, and where do the batch fall into this? I mean, the way they strong arm Benny into helping them. At first, they're not really being very respectful toward Benny, and Omega comes to trust him, but I don't know if the rest of them ever do.
Wrecker stiff arming him off of the speeder.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's like, okay, we've got your attention now.
Yeah. That was okay. Talk about action. Yeah. That genuinely was a great little action sequence, though. What was it? Hunter and Tech come in and confront Benny. Benny tries to run and gets knocked off by Wrecker and scrambles to escape Wrecker, only to run into Omega's bow. And that it was short, but I really enjoyed the choreography of it and the.
Yeah, that one was done really well.
For not having action, they can build tension pretty well.
Yeah, I liked Omega's free dive off of the scaffolding there with the robot.
That was another great character moment, because you saw her lock eyes with Hunter, and that was all she needed. Is like, okay, I'm just gonna throw myself out there and trust that Hunter is gonna take care of me. And I thought that was, again, a beautiful piece of Omega's faithfulness and trust in her family. That's like the best side of Omega's optimism.
It's like she just knows it's gonna work out. It might be messy, but it's gonna work out.
Yeah.
I still see that as a blessing and a curse for her to be like overly trusting, overly caring. Because
I agree. Yeah. But,
I was also thinking, I'm like, what if he just missed and just didn't catch her? Like, it was entirely cynical in my mind to think that, but it was just like, what if he didn't, Mm-hmm. I don't like how things have fit together so easily for them. It seems like, they lost it. Oh, well, we're going to track it. We got it back next episode. No issues there. And it's just like, Omega got caught. We're going to catch her from her falling off with a droid. I still thought it was funny also watching the robot lose its balance, and it was like starting to try and get it, and then it's just like, nope, I'm going to slowly tumble over.
Yeah.
I like the droids and how they looked. You know, we've seen a lot of them in the different sort of they're able to make them still look different, yet personable. Like having those, like, I guess protocol droid looking ones where they're bipedal, humanoid looking, and they all still seem so unique and to have their own different traits. I liked the imaging and the images and cinematography and just the overall landscape of things, but it was just those convenience things.
I mean, I would feel a lot better about the convenience of things if they felt like more connected to a stronger plot line. I think.
I mean, Omega is the plot, so it seems like more and more.
I want her to be the plot anyway.
I do too, and I'd love to see more of what she has to offer. Obviously, she's just a generic, unaltered clone, which was discussed in season 1, but I still want to see something of her that sets her apart and defines her better. And yeah, maybe that compassion and that trusting and the faith that she has in other people.
Wait, Josh, you said she's unaltered?
Yes, she is an unaltered genetic clone. She is. But
she can't be unaltered because she's a she. So there's a little bit something different in her.
There's season 1 on Camino. They said that Omega was the other unaltered genetic makeup of Jango Fett. Boba Fett's codename was Alpha, so he was Plan A. They use him. Omega, the end, the last resort, if they don't have anything else. It makes sense then that she would be unaltered as well, because first Plan A, Plan B basically, and Plan B is the last plan. It was said in season 1 that she is the unaltered, though.
Yeah, that word was used, but Kathryn, you're right. It's if she was absolutely unaltered, then you would think she would be male, like Boba, like all of the soldier clones.
Yeah, we know there's something a little bit different about her.
Yeah, not just because of her gender, but because of her compassion and because of that feeling of kind of purpose about her, and the value that she has for the Kaminoans and their genetic program. It would not surprise me if that unaltered turned out to be, let's say, something that we could view from a different point of view.
Yes, from a certain point of view.
Also known as a lie.
Well, she is a lot like the leader of the Mandalorians. What was her name? Who
Satine? Duchess Satine?
Yes.
Yeah.
She's very much like the Duchess. You know, if you think about Jango Fett as being more of the warrior, Mandalorian, Satine is more of the compassionate Mandalorian. And so you can kind of see that reflected in both Boba and Omega that way. I just thought of that now, so who knows? It could be completely wrong.
Every
it was
great
the
thought
blonde
has
hair.
to start
I don't
somewhere.
know why.
Yeah, that's the other thing. I mean, if she was unaltered, her hair would probably be dark. Her coloration would be different. She does have an extremely strong Kiwi accent, though, so that trumps everything else. So, any other thoughts about this episode?
I think the ending set it up really nicely. to either become the Bad Batch working on saving those smaller groups, so things like the Makos of the world, or to join together with other small groups to fight a larger front because of text speech at the end. I feel like it could go either way with that, and either one of those I feel like it'd be okay to see. And I think it sort of ended and summed up the Empire here very nicely.
Yeah, it definitely felt like they found purpose. Although I must say, after listening to you guys talk about, the plot line and all that other stuff, it feels like a really big puzzle that we have a few pieces of that are put together really nicely, but not the whole image, and we don't have the picture to work from.
Yeah. And I feel like they're dangling pieces, the things that I'm thinking of anyway is the overarching plot line. They give us information about where Crosshair is, and they give us, they keep reminding us of how unique Omega is. And, but yeah, it doesn't feel like that's, it doesn't feel like they're, or rather it feels like they're just dangling those things for now. And I don't know, maybe they're planning to really bring it out more in season 3 or something, or in a few episodes at the end of season 2. I don't know. But I kind of wish there was more attention paid to those, kind of more consistently.
Well, I hope for Josh he gets a big epic action scene.
Hopefully soon. The Mandalorian's next week, so
we're gonna get lots of action.
Yeah, we should get. Yeah, so not to anticipate things too much, but next week we're going to shift gears and start talking about the Mandalorian. The Bad Batch is going to continue on Disney Plus. So, but we'll get back to talking about the Bad Batch after we've gone through the Mandalorian. But here we are, just before the Mandalorian season 3 drops. Do either of you have any thoughts, expectations, predictions about season 3 of the Mandalorian, just so we can put you on record and laugh at us all for being wrong later?
I want Bo-Katan as the main antagonist of trying to regain the throne through the Darksaber. That's my prediction. That's what I want to see. I want to see the development of the Mandalorians as a whole and bringing them back together, as well as Satine being a, I guess, non-member of the Watch. So the Watch of the people on the moon. And then she wasn't. She was with Satine, and I don't know. I want to see Bo-Katan as the main enemy and villain of this series.
That's interesting. You want to see her as a villain. I just want to see them all resolve it somehow. Get the glory of Mandalore back.
For resolve, there needs to be a conflict. So.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's gonna be a fight somehow, somewhere over the Darksaber.
Well, there has to be. That's the only way it can change hands, right?
Yeah.
And
action.
I mean, Din Djarin tried to give it to her, and unlike in Rebels, she didn't take it.
Yeah.
But
she learned her lesson.
She did. But I think I've mentioned this theory before. I think it would be amazing to see Grogu be the one who finally wields the Darksaber and unites Mandalore together. Sort of returning the Darksaber to the Mandalorian who is also a Jedi, and a
50-year-old toddler,
and a 50-year-old toddler to boot, because why the heck not? Yeah. So I have no idea if that's. I just would find that very personally satisfying. that I think that, like, in my mind, it's the title of the show is The Mandalorian, and who is the true Mandalorian? It's not Din Djarin, who we've been assuming all along. It's Grogu. But
are we gonna get a little helmet with his ears sticking out?
Well, this is partly why I developed this theory. It was like, I really want to see him in a helmet.
That'd be awesome.
All right. Well, this has been a fantastic conversation. I'd like to take a moment at this point to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to have such great conversations and to create the secrets of Star Wars. And this week we'd like to especially mention Connor B, Jan P, Martin O, Kevin F, and Alan E. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue all of our shows at StarQuest, including The Secrets of Star Wars. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. You can also support us and, frankly, just follow along better by subscribing to the show in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or you can follow us on the SQPN YouTube channel. You can find previous episodes of Secrets of Star Wars, and you can also send us feedback at sqpn.com/Star Wars. You can drop us an email at starwars@sqpn.com, or follow StarQuest on social media at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or on Twitter at SQPN, or on our Discord server by going to sqpn.com/Discord. As I said, we'll be back next week, but we'll be taking a break from the Bad Batch so that we can talk about the new season of The Mandalorian. Once we've walked through the Mando season 3, we'll finish up the Bad Batch. This is honestly kind of an odd moment. I feel a lot of tension in the Bad Batch at the moment, and it feels like a weird moment to leave it. So I'm looking forward to getting back at it. But we can only do one podcast a week, so I blame Disney for pitting two great shows against each other. Anyway, until next week, Kathryn, thank you for joining me in sharing the secrets of Star Wars.
Thank you so much. This was fun.
Josh, thank you for all your input as well. It's great to have you on the show.
I'm happy to join.
And again, I'm Robert King, and thank you for listening to The Secrets of Star Wars on StarQuest.
Here's another show on the StarQuest network you're sure to enjoy, Raising the Bets. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/bets. That's BETTS, bets.